Guys, thank you for joining us. Today's topic is women in sailing, and I believe today is going to be. I think this is going to be one of those. I was really excited for this one, just because I have a lot of female friends in the maritime industry, and I know they would enjoy sailing. So I'm just trying to find more information regarding that. I'm really excited to be here. But with that said, please, guys, keep your mics muted. Unless you have a question, you can raise your hand. If you can't hold on to it too long, you can put it in the chat where Rob, I, or anyone else from SAS will be able to actually answer any questions that come up. But with that, I think Rob, you can take it away. Excited to hear what you have to share with us.
Thank you very much, Lucy. So I'm just going to try and get my presentation up here. And there's so many clicks on this to get this presentation going. Malusi, have you got that in front of you? Is my presentation up?
Yes, I have it in front of me.
Okay, brilliant. Good evening, everybody, and thank you for having me again. This is quite an interesting topic and quite a difficult topic to deliver because it's so controversial depending where you're talking in the world. But my aim here is to throw out some ideas there on how we can change our thinking and do things slightly differently to attract more women into our sport, because we are only marginally successful at getting women into the sport. So just to reiterate, this is not the law. This is some ideas on how we can look at getting more women in the sport. So the first question is, why do we want more women in the sport? Well, my first answer is because I prefer women to men, so I'll rather have a whole bunch of women around me. But the reality of it is that 49.6% of the world is female. So if we cut out the woman and don't market to the woman, we're cutting out basically half of our market for sailing. And South Africa's got a very similar ratio. So if we are not specifically marketing to the woman and we're not making things attractive to women, then we are cutting out that market. We would see traditionally sailing has been a very male-orientated sport in the management of sailing, what attracts people to sailing, how sailing is done, the equipment, and generally the competition of sailing. So we're going to look a bit into that. The world trend today is towards gender equity. The IOC has this at the top of their list of items they are pushing. So they are really requiring international federations to be more gender equal and encouraging competition to be gender equal and all programs to be gender equal. The IOC gives money to specific programs for women in sport to encourage that gender equity, and the Olympic Games has been changed in a way to encourage gender equity. So federations are required to change the way their competitions are so they can be more gender equal in most sports. Gender equity, more females in the sport creates more stability in the sport because it creates more balance. There's a lot more funding out there. In the modern day, there's a lot of companies that would fund female programs to encourage women into the sport more than they would encourage programs with men in the sport. Now, in South Africa, we've got the added thing of transformation. So, but a lot of what we talk about here can be applied to transformation, but we are looking at gender transformation predominantly here. Then the general growth of the sport. We want to grow sailing, and the series, I don't know if all of you have been in all the talks, but the series has gone about growing sailing, and we need to look at ways to make sailing more attractive to general public, and 50% of that market is female. So we need to look how we can make sailing more attractive to the female. Now, a lot of people battle with change, and I see this around the world. Countries say they want to change, but when you look down at the reality of it, they're not changing. So just some thoughts on the access for women. So looking at juniors, and we again look at juniors being under 15 years old. So 8 to 15 years old in sailing is generally considered the junior market. A place we generally fall apart is female instructors, females teaching sailing to people. So with young girls, very small girls, they never are exposed, or they're very seldom exposed to women teaching them. And but if we look at the preschools and the junior schools, most of the teachers are female, because young children in that sort of age category seem to respond better to females. Yet we have an imbalance around the world and generally on instructors. This is a natural process because the sailors become instructors, and we've got less female sailors, so we have less female instructors. But we need to work specifically on developing female instructors. In addition to this, in the shorter term, we need to train male instructors on how to deal with young girls. So how do we encourage young girls to enjoy the sport of sailing, rather than put young girls off the sport of sailing? And this applies both to junior youth and women. But in the junior phase, it's very easy to put girls off the sport, and in the teenage phase, which we'll get to. So we need to train our male instructors how to deal with women and girls in the sport. Optimist sailing in this area of juniors has been very successful, but that success hasn't been carried over. And there's a lot of theories on this. I believe that that a lot has to do with when the girls mature, they get different interests, and we do not accommodate those different interests. And then secondly, girls get in the optimists get pushed too hard, and like boys, and we lose them because of that. So the other area is to convince the parents, and this goes a lot into our other cultures in South Africa. How do we convince parents that it is beneficial for their kids to come and sail? Showing the parents what benefit sailing has for a young girl or a young woman in this world we're in. And we've been very good at focusing, or very good, no, we haven't. We've been better at focusing on what is attractive for a boy to be involved in the sport. But for a girl, there's not much marketing, there's not much development on why girls should become, get into the sport and be part of the sport. Moving on to youth, so 15 to 19 years old, basically. A big one that can affect this is role marketing and general marketing, but focusing on role models. If I ask who's the most successful male sailor in the world, most people will be able to answer me. Olympic-wise, that is Ben Ainsley. But how many can answer who's the most successful woman in the world? Olympic female sailor. And very few people can answer that question. And why is that? It's because they're not marketed to the young people. They're not marketed as these women who are role models who can be led. I saw a video done by Marieke Bouwmaster, and this is an amazing woman. She's phenomenal. But how many people, how many young girls have been introduced to how phenomenal this person is? If we go into the offshore market, Ellen MacArthur, who did single-handed circumnavigations, why hasn't this been shown to these girls to show them that they can, that the sport offers a huge amount? So marketing in all aspects, but focusing on role models, and then career pathways for women, not boat building. Yes, women can do boat building if they want, but most mothers don't picture their daughters building boats. Most mothers rather picture their daughters doing something more what would be considered female, and there's a lot of opportunity in sailing in those for that sort of thing. Equipment, we need to be looking at equipment and what is good equipment and what is not good equipment. We'll talk a bit more about the equipment at a later stage. And then convincing the teenager. This is a problem in both boys and girls, but it is more of a problem in girls. When a girl becomes a teenager, how do we keep them in sailing? And maybe we have to change our focus in how we're keeping these girls in the sport. What are we selling to them? What are we telling them about what they can and can't do? How are we encouraging them to be part of sailing? Then moving on to the woman, and again, the equipment issue comes up in a big way. What type of equipment is there? How easy is it to sail? How much power does it need to sail? And is it comfortable? And then marketing. How are we marketing to women? So a couple of points from creating access sessions. Make the training and training centers accessible. This applies to all aspects of sailing, but make it accessible to female sailors. An old one that everyone brings up is the bathrooms and toilets in a yacht club. This has been solved in a lot of yacht clubs. We've got better facilities for women, but make the training centers and your clubs more accessible to women. Put them in the right place where women feel safe to go there and spend the day there with their kids. Put them in places that are easy to get to. When you're putting a training center there, think of what a woman or female sailor is going to enjoy. And us guys, it is changing, but especially guys born pre-70s, you know what? They're willing to pee behind a tree, and that's quite comfortable. But women don't want to do that. So we need to change that. We need to have the right things there for them. Have a training structure with us, with trained instructors working according to a good syllabus. This is vitally important, and we need to train our instructors to be encouraging girls and women into the sport. We need to train them on how to deal with the situations they're going to encounter when working with girls and women. Most importantly, above all, the cornerstone of every program, make sure it is safe. So just some thoughts for retention that we're going to go through. There's physical aspects, there's emotional aspects, there's social aspects, and then there's culture and religion that we're going to look at. So physical. Strength and physical build. Girls in general, and I'm generalizing here, but girls in general are weaker than men. The equipment we're sailing today generally was created for men, and it takes a lot of physicality to sail. Now, we have a lot of women that enjoy that physicality, that want to be in that physicality. But if we look beyond this, if we look at the women that are not looking at sailing at all, are we marketing to them? Have we got the right equipment? Are they looking at the sport and thinking, I must get into a piece of rubber and go out there and suffer the whole day on a boat in the sun and trying to pull something that doesn't want to be pulled and push things that don't want to be pushed, and dealing with men that think I shouldn't be there? Is that the image? We need to look at the correct equipment that's going to make it comfortable for the girls and women. Remember, we spoke about recreational sailing and competitive sailing. To attract these girls to the sport, we're probably going to have to focus more on recreational equipment that is enjoyable to sail, that is not too physical, that you can sheet the mainsail in completely without using your legs and your arms and your chest and everything. Boats like that we need to be looking at. A very real aspect of teaching girls, and especially, and it's a factor going into women if we're dealing with women that are not used to outdoors and physical activity, but especially young girls and teenagers, is the monthly menstrual cycle of a girl. This is a major factor. Now, in the physical aspect of it, we need to be aware that there are a couple of physical things there. Firstly, the girls they don't feel well. They've got pain, they've got headaches, they just feel uncomfortable. So we need to be aware of that. And if I'm an instructor or a coach who's going to take those girls and just push them and push hard and say, no, you got to get on the water, get out there and, stop whinging, that's going to turn girls off sailing. We need to be aware of this. We need to know how to deal with it. And we need to be aware that it is a very sensitive issue. So we need to train male coaches how to deal with this. For example, we might have if you are running a center that's just got male instructors or coaches, make the opportunity to bring in a mother to speak to the girls and say to them, look, if it's that time of the month and you don't want to go on the water, go over to the instructor and say to the instructor, I'll help you with paperwork today. And then the instructor knows. That's a code word. It's not going to embarrass the girls. It's not going to be a big issue. But the instructor knows, don't ask any questions. Right, would you like to come with me on the coach boat, or would you like to stay in the office? There's it. But think of creative ways on how to deal with this situation. Obviously, there's the actual physical situation that a girl could be embarrassed by blood in the boat and that sort of things. We need to be aware of that. We need to be very, very sensitive to this, and we need to cater around it. Going to the toilet, guys stand up, pull their wetsuit down and have a pee, or some guys even pee in their wetsuits. Girls don't want to do that. And yes, there are a lot of wetsuits that are made nowadays to be easier for a girl to have a pee, but it's still not there. I saw a presentation for a wetsuit that has a little plastic cup, so it's got Velcro just in the crotch area, and you open the Velcro and put a little cup in there, and then they can stand and pee like a man. But that technology is not really big in South Africa at the moment, and even when it is, it's something the girl has to get used to. So if possible, think of the sessions you have. Think of the length of the sessions. Think of what other options we have. If you're training close to the shore, have a slightly longer break so that if someone wants to go to the toilet quickly, they can duck off and go to the toilet quickly. But be aware, this is an issue for girls. This is an issue for getting girls into the sport. Clothing slowly starting to get better and better in the sailing industry, but still it's not quite there. It's not hugely attractive. It's not something that a girl's going to rush out and oh, that's an amazing top. I need to have that. We're getting there, but it's slow. Some of the companies are really starting to get better and better at it. And if we look at the kiteboarding market, there's a lot of much better stuff coming through the kiteboarding and in some areas the windsurfing market. So have a look at the wider range. Make the girls aware of it. Don't just show them the Zyke and the Gill products that are not necessarily the nicest products, even though these companies are getting better. In puberty, girls have body changes. And it's not only in the chest area, it is also hips, and their balance is changing. We need to be aware of this. Instructors and coaches need to be aware that girls are going to handle the changes differently, and girls are going to be more sensitive. So in the physical changes, be aware of this and be sensitive to it. Then moving on to the emotional changes and the emotional aspects. So again, the monthly menstrual cycle comes into this. When girls are going through this, and I'm sure every married man or man with daughters knows, when a girl's going through that cycle, her emotions are different. Um, my wife's always much more on edge. I get into trouble much quicker. And so we've got to be aware of this. Don't push them to the limit. Make it more attractive for them to, even during this time, get on a boat and sail. And of course, the ideal situation is more female instructors and coaches. Then, just something that someone mentioned to me with the dealing with the cycles, and they during it was a performance coach, Olympic coach in the UK, and one of the things they started doing with their training squad is, because it was predominantly girls, was they would have a slightly longer time after coming off the water till when they do the debrief. So because girls need more time, and what they found was they put this into their center and they did it with everybody. And what they found was that more, even the boys were enjoying this more. Get changed, have time to get changed, shower properly, get yourself all sorted, and then we do our debrief. So just be aware that that can be a way. I know in the instructor courses we teach debrief as soon as possible after the training. Yes, that's what we aim at, but maybe we need to lengthen the time slightly when we have girls in our group. Psychologically, puberty changes. Remember, girls mature earlier than boys, so it becomes a bit of a friction thing if you've got girls and boys together, and this sort of happens in the prime of the optimist era. So be aware that there's going to be more friction. The girls are slowly becoming women. Certain things are changing. The way they think is changing. They become more sensitive about their body. So they realize that boys are starting to look at them differently. We need to be aware of this. We need to adjust the way we teach and the way we deal with the girls in that time. Generally, boys become, and this is again a generalization, but it is generally this way. Boys, when they reach puberty and they start going into their teenage years, they become slightly more aggressive. They want to show off. They want to push people around. They become more windgat. But girls become more emotional. So girls start crying about things that they don't even know why they're crying about. Girls become more sensitive. So it's just the natural process. And there's nothing wrong with any of this. We just need to be aware of it and we need to manage it in the right way. Just vitally important, the attention of boys and that boys and men give to girls and women needs to be managed. So many girls have been put off sport in a lot of sports because of the way the boys come on to them. And this is a major problem in a lot of our African countries because the culture is that I am entitled to, if a girl's there, I'm entitled, I'm almost expected to put pressure on her and pursue her. This cannot be accepted in our training centers and in our coaching centers. We cannot accept boys putting pressure on girls with and flirting, hard flirting. Boys are going to flirt with girls. That's just going to happen. But there's a line, and we need to be, as instructors and coaches, very aware of where that line is, and we need to watch because different girls have a different place. So as soon as we see a girl getting uncomfortable, we need to deal with the situation. Of course, this goes a lot further into the whole protection of child protection and protection of vulnerable adults. And we need to make sure that we do not have people who are going to take this thing where it shouldn't go. Of course, it goes without saying, instructors and coaches cannot and should not have a relationship with any of their students. That said, I've come across places around the world where it is very bad. I came across a head coach in one country that will remain unmentioned, and I spoke to one of the head coach's ex-sailors was on the coach course, and I was told that this coach had slept with every single one of his girls that had come through his hands. Now, that is totally unacceptable. We cannot tolerate that, and that must be dealt with as harsh as we possibly can deal with it. Looking at social now, social I think is one of the big areas we are falling down on, and I think this can have the biggest impact on getting more girls and women into sport. Girls and women enjoy friendship groups. That's where they get their kick out of. They enjoy being with friends. A guy will come to sailing and go out and race and come off the water and go home, and he's had a good time because he's just pushed himself. Now, a lot of girls are like that too. But if the girls that we are talking here that are not necessarily those seriously competitive type of girls, the girls who just want to do this for a bit of fun, they want to do it with friends. They want to do it with other women, not a bunch of guys, other women. So think of creating friendship groups. Girls find safety in the group. Young girls, teenage girls who are going through changes want to go through those changes with other friends that are going through the same problems. And if we've got a group of those girls, our chances of losing girls is much less because everyone understands each other in the group. They can talk about their problems, they can talk about overcoming their problems, and they can have fun together without the pressures that come with mixed groups. Think of family and motherhood, which becomes a priority at some stage in life. We know that a lot of girls are going to want to get married and have children at some stage in their life. This has moved on to a later stage, much older in the modern day, but it's still there. And we need to see how can we encompass this? How can we make this that we don't lose the mothers when they have babies? We don't lose the pregnant woman when she falls pregnant. Keep her in the sport. It might be that we run groups of sailing for pregnant women, which is very doable. Alfie sailed till she was 8 months pregnant. And even was trapezing at 8 months, which I don't know if it was brilliant, but it worked. But we need to think that maybe girls on a keelboat or a pregnant woman's group on a keelboat, advertise that. You can have the instructor who's a girl or a woman who's looking after the boat, driving the boat, and bringing out pregnant women on keelboats. It can work. Yes, we've got to be careful, but it can work, and that can bring more women into the sport. Young women with babies. A lot of sports have developed in this area where they have mom and child bonding groups within the sport, and they do silly little exercises and that. Sailing can offer something like that. Mothers with young babies can go on the water. There's no reason why they shouldn't go on the water. This can be a huge developmental opportunity for the mother and the daughter and the child. Taking the child out on the water, it gives the mother the opportunity to get out of the house with their child and do something. Maybe you won't go on the water. Maybe you'll just do something at the yacht club, but within the environment of sailing. But I really believe that mother-child groups is something that we haven't tapped into and that can be very successful. So have a look what opportunities there are. Then looking at culture and religion. In South Africa, this presentation was designed for an international market. In South Africa, we don't have a huge problem, but we do have a thing. I don't think we have a huge separate women separate cultures, which is very dominant in the Muslim countries, where men and girls and boys are not allowed to mix in sport. So especially at teenage years. So there you need to make a plan on how you can do women-only groups to accommodate the culture. It doesn't help fighting against the culture. Accept the culture and look how you can adjust your sport to fit into that culture, to develop to use the cultural problem and make it an opportunity. Work within the rules. We don't want to upset people who have cultural differences. If you're going to get a child to do something that is against the rules of their culture, you are playing with fire, and you're going to lose those people if the parents find out. And normally they will. So don't break the rules. Stay within the rules and try and think of creative ways that you can involve these women in the sport without breaking the rules of the culture. Early family culture, our neighbors in the north, this is a huge problem, but I believe it is still a problem within some of our black cultures, where a girl, her job is she's going to go and have children, get married, have children, and be a housewife. That's the responsibility of a girl in the culture. We need to be aware that this culture exists. How do we change this culture? We're not going to walk in there and tell the parents they're stupid, because they are, but that's not the right way to go about it. Show the value of a career in sport. Show how the woman can still fulfill the requirements that the family is expecting of her, and take part in the sport. So show how the sport can work together with it. Show family participation and the benefits sailing can offer the family. So where a parent is saying, my daughter has to now get married and have children, say, great, that's fine, but while she's pregnant or before she falls pregnant, it's important that she stays fit. Let's keep her in sailing to stay fit. When she falls pregnant, she can sail. We can show that that sailing's not bad for pregnant women. After this, she can bring the children to the club. The children are going to get friends there. The children are going to develop in a healthy way. So this is opportunity. So think of ways that you can get around that. I don't think this is a massive problem in our country, but we've got to be aware of it. And maybe some of our guys who are more aware of the cultural challenges can enlighten us on that later. So a couple of ideas for development of a woman in sport. Role models, we said we want more role models. We want to show the girls that there are successful women in sailing. There are successful women in all aspects of sailing. And even in the career pathway of sailing. If we look at things like the hospitality industry, there are some hugely successful women on ships and private yachts that have come through the sailing industry and developed themselves into that role. Think of role models in the Olympic Games, in offshore racing, in coaching, in all sorts of areas in sailing. Think of where women have really succeeded, because there are a lot of women out there that have succeeded in this area. Show those to the girls, show the girls where they can go. The last talk I did was on pathways. We need to show the girls that there is a pathway for women and girls in the sport. Marketing, what do women want? Now, research shows that for sport, the main reason women do sport today is for fitness and weight loss. That is the number one reason women do sport. Then for social is the second most important reason. And the third is the challenge and the competition of it. So if we think of fitness and weight loss, sailing does not market to that market at all. If you go and look at the online at what sailing's about, you Google it and you're not a knowledgeable person, you will see women in bikinis and guys with beers and a lot of martinis and all sorts of drinks on the deck of a keelboat. That does not sell this image of fitness and weight loss. Sailing is a physical sport. And if we get down to dinghy sailing, we can actually market our sport as get fit in a healthy way on the water, and think of ways we can show that our sport can make you fit. Just pulling your boat out of the water is a tough one. We don't want to market that too much, but think of ways to show. I mean, nowadays quite a big thing is Pilates and yoga on stand-up paddle boards. Maybe there's something that can be done on boats. Find a way to encourage, to tap into this market. The world has gone mad with health and fitness. Let's think how we can tap into that market in sailing, specifically for girls and women. Social. Girls and women, the research shows that they do sport for social, get together with like-minded friends. Let's show how that can happen within sailing, because yes, it can. For a group of women to get mothers who are full-time house mothers to get together on a morning during for a little sail and then a chat and some whatever girls do. That's an opportunity. Let that happen and market that to be happening. Career women who are busy at work every day, give short opportunities on the weekend when they can come and spend some time sailing and spending time with other women who think the way they do. So let's find a way to market our sport to the fitness industry and the social industry. And then, of course, the challenging side, that is reasonably well covered at the moment, competition and that, but maybe there needs to be some tweaks so that we can show an easier entry into our sport for those women that see they want to be challenged physically and they want that competition. Do we market this correctly? Can we change something we're doing? Respect of ability, this goes two ways. Firstly, we need to understand that some women are going to be weaker. But on the other hand, we mustn't expect women to be weaker. When a woman gets on a boat, I've spoken to a lot of women who feel if they get on the boat and they're the only woman on the boat and there's all men, they immediately expected to carry the drinks and do the light work. They're not expected to do the heavy work. But the men almost expect the girls to fail at that heavy work. Watch her pull the halyard now, see if she can do anything on that. Well, that's not the right way. Give them the opportunity to show what they can do. And when you help them, don't take over from them. Help them like you would with another guy that's battling with something. Go and help them with that. So show the girls, respect their ability. Don't expect them to fail and don't expect too much. I know that's a bit ambiguous, but it's just be sensitive to the situation. Mom and child's groups, I spoke about that. I really think there's a market for that. I think we need to find a way to put a package together that shows that moms with young children can get together on a sailboat or in a sailing environment and really develop their child and themselves and develop that relationship. Females instructors and coaches, we desperately need to be developing more female instructors and coaches. A couple of countries, Belize being one of them, they went out to other sports and they found women that were interested in coaching, and they taught them to sail and then taught them to coach. They didn't have any woman in the sport, so they had to go outside. Maybe we need to look at that. I'm not sure, but we need to get more females in instructors and coaches. Women-only groups, I find quite often women like women-only groups. When you're teaching someone to sail, if you put the husband or the brother with them, the husband is generally so worried about his wife that he keeps correcting her and he forgets about what he's supposed to be doing. And then the wife's uncomfortable, she doesn't learn as much, and eventually you have a big fight and then off we go. We're not sailing anymore. So sometimes, especially in the learn to sail phase, it's good to have women-only groups. Further on, I think women-only groups must be available because there are a lot of women that want to take part in women's only sailing. And then I said this in most of my sessions, but family sailing. We need to develop family sailing more. Sailing is a very good family sport. Encourage families to do it, and not the old school thing of the husband's going to the yacht club, he's going to work a bit on his boat, then he's going to sail it, he's coming back having a few beers with his mates, and then he'll maybe come home, while the wife is sitting at home looking after the kids. We need to get past that. We need to create opportunity for the wife and the kids to go there, no matter what age those kids are. We need to create that opportunity. So family sailing, very important. So thank you. That's me, and we'll open up to some questions through Malusi. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Rob. That was very informative. I think is there anyone who has any questions in regards to that?
Hi, Rob. Peter Hall here. Just a question, in all your travels again, what are the sort of 2 or 3 key things that you think we should be focusing on initially to change things or move things along?
Yeah, Peter. So thank you. It's the countries that have been successful with marketing sailing to women. They've got more female specific programs. So everything they do, they have a female specific side of it. And I think this is a very important area, is that we need to accept that women are different to men. And yes, there's a group of women that are the same as men, and there's a lot of women that'll outrun, outsail, out everything me, you know, and out arm wrestle me. But generally, if we look at the general group, women are different to men, and we need to embrace that difference, and we need to have programs that are for that, as opposed to just one program. This is our program, and it's designed traditionally around men, but the girls must just fit in and fit there. So I think that would be the primary thing, is try and create programs that are women specific. Very few have taken up this idea of having children groups for pregnant women, and groups for young kids, and then older kids with their mothers. So under 5 years old children with their mothers. I think there's a few places where that's been very successful. And when I say places, I'm not talking countries, I'm talking clubs that have initiated programs like that, where it has become very successful. So thinking of what do girls and women want, and what is going to attract them, and creating that. And my idea of what's going to attract a woman and Alfie's idea of what's going to attract a woman are 2 different things. So we need to listen to the girls and the women in our environment and hear what they can do, but what they want to do. But the highest success rates are with countries that have a lot of female-only programs, that they are tailoring programs directly to the woman.
Right, thanks.
Steve, right. Thanks, Peter. Steve has a question on, do you have any indication of the percentage of women participation in Europe compared to SA?
No, I think that would be a very difficult stat to get together. A lot of the European countries do keep good statistics, but not all of them. And I think in South Africa, our statistics are not that accurate, but it would be an interesting bit of research to do. Just from my observation, it's reasonably similar. It's an up and down thing. The thing that I see a lot of is that the women who are sailing are the tougher women. The women, and I'm talking beyond optimist sailing. They women that are willing to put up with more discomfort. And we need to look at marketing more, and this goes in Europe as well, marketing more towards those women who are not wanting discomfort, who are wanting to just have a little sail and enjoy maybe a club race that they sit on the boat and look pretty, because there's a huge amount of girls who want painted nails, who want false eyelashes, who want a lot of makeup on. I spoke to one woman from Europe who said her daughter, who's an Olympic medalist, ditched the crew because their crew got makeup on the spinnaker. It's 470 sailors. So that is an area that's a problem across the world. But we need to start catering for those girls who want to wear a lot of makeup, who want to look pretty on the boat. And there's a big market that we're not tapping into there, and we need, this is where equipment comes in. And this is a problem across the world. And because world sailing gets most of their money from the Olympic Committee, most of what we do, unfortunately, is focused towards the Olympics. But there's this huge market, and things are changing. But this thing of, let's get that bulk of girls who are not wanting to be the tough chick who's willing to take on any challenge from any man. They want to be the beautiful girl that is going to still be feminine, very feminine, and enjoys the sport of sailing. So I hope that
Kulego, you have your hand up.
Hi, Rob. Kulego here. In all the countries you've visited, which one was the most transformed in terms of having women on the water? And where do we as South Africa stand compared to that certain country?
A very difficult question, because I would have to be looking at the very first world countries. So USA and France and the UK. France is very, very far ahead of us, but France's sailing is massive. Everyone in France has the opportunity to sail. There's millions. They've got over 100,000 yacht clubs in France. So actually, I think it's just over 400,000 yacht clubs or sailing centers in France. So we can't really compare to that because their culture is so different. It's a well-developed sailing culture. The same with the UK is a well-developed sailing culture. We need to look at other emerging countries, and we don't do too badly compared to other emerging countries. If we look at emerging nations, I think we're doing a lot better than a lot of them. But I'm nervous to say that because we're not doing well. We are not attracting enough girls and women into the sport, and we're not keeping enough girls and women in the sport. So if I compare us to other developing countries, we're not doing too badly.
Right. Heidi, would you like to go?
Hi, Rob, it's Heidi Berger. For those of you who don't know me, I spent quite a few years running an all-girls sailing team. So this topic is quite close to heart, and I feel quite strongly about it. I was a little bit concerned with a few points you made during the presentation. I thought there were a lot of generalizations that sometimes that harm the cause more than help it, specifically about the kind of race generalizations apart from gender. I found that a little bit worrying. But I think just in terms of, I wanted to raise, in terms of ideas of bringing women in sport, I obviously have a few ideas on how to increase women in sport. Some of them I've already tried and some of them I still want to try. But I think what I agreed with you a lot is the having women sailing teams. I found that worked really well in keeping women in sailing and in sport. It was an environment where you didn't have a male just taking over, because there were no males to take over, and it forced the women to do it themselves, and they could see that they were fully capable on doing it themselves. And also found a lot of it is linked to, so that's kind of linked to empowering women. So maybe what I'm asking is, how do you have any ideas for empowering women in the sport of sailing? Because I think, to me, I think that's a crucial step in the right direction to bring more women into sailing.
Yes, Heidi. So thank you. I appreciate your feedback. Empowering women, I think, firstly, role models, showing that the woman that you can be the skipper of the boat, you can be the most important person on the boat. So showing that that is possible, I think that's the first thing. But it's a difficult one. But I think empowering women through, I just think women should be there, and we need to, I think through groups of women sailing, that does empower. I'm having a problem answering this one. I think you should answer it. But I think through role models and creating opportunity for women to excel in sailing and to just be themselves in sailing. I know a lot of women who sail with men have a huge problem because they just, no matter how good they are, they're never allowed to get to reach their potential because the men are always blocking them. And I think through women-only groups, we're not going to change the old school guys. We're not going to change a lot of the modern guys. They're going to always think like that, no matter what they say. But to create the women's only groups and that sort of thing, I think that's one of the opportunities. And then to create the role models. And then, of course, to the right instructors and coaches, because some girls are basically taught from an early stage by instructors and coaches that they're not as good as the men. And a lot of the girls and women are a lot better than the men. It's interesting, in the international circuit on the NACRA 17, there's a strong school of thought that the girls should be driving, because for a number of reasons, but the lighter person should be at the back of the boat. But majority of those NACRAs on the circuit, the man's driving. Why? Because it's a control thing. He believes that he's controlling the boat. So we need to be encouraging girls to take control of the boat and take the stick and be the controlling person. And at the same time, we need to be making men and boys aware that girls, in a lot of cases, girls are much more sensitive on the helm of a boat than a majority, than a man. So we need to be highlighting these areas. But I would say the biggest one, the role models, and then girl and women groups. So open to you. I would love to hear more from you on your ideas, Heidi.
Yeah, I think another thing I found during my campaign, we did a lot of calling out sexism at the yacht club. So we did the Lipton Cup campaigns, and the first 3 were at Royal Cape, and the other one was at Durban. And we found, especially the first 2 years of our campaign, we found a lot of sexism and backlash on things kind of like along the lines of it's just girls in pretty clothing type attitude. They're not like to take us seriously, but they're just like these pretty little girls dressing up type thing. And that I found it was actually positive to see that it actually changed over the years. So we didn't, all of us were very strong-minded, kind of your university age people. So we put a lot of effort into calling people out and your full feminist rants type thing. But we actually found it worked really well. And we found it had a positive influence. So like 3 years later, we found we were a lot more respected, and we found that women were, a lot of my crew and other women were accepted onto these big racing boats. So that calling out and bringing down sexism in yacht clubs definitely made a big difference. So I think there's a lot of space at each yacht clubs to actually call out when you hear sexist comments, or call people out when you hear these kind of sweeping generalizations as like, women only care about making babies, they don't want to sail. It's like things like that are quite harmful to especially younger girls' mindsets. It's like, it kind of enforces that that's all they're meant to be, rather show them the opportunities that there are out there and that it's completely normal for them to go out and sail and be competitive. So that calling out sexism and just creating a space where they don't feel uncomfortable at yacht clubs, I think that goes a long way. And we really did find a big change in mind shift by our third year. And then I don't think we actually noticed that there's such a big shift until we went to Durban, and we almost had to like start all over again, because there was this like completely new sexism wave that, because they hadn't interacted with our campaign as much, they didn't know that we were going to call them out if they, I mean, and one of our girls got asked at one of the prize giving, they were like, oh, do your underwear match? I mean, we were in team gear and we got asked about our underwear. I mean, this was an 18-year-old girl being asked by an old man in a bar about her underwear. It was stuff like that, that's what you need to call out, because that's what makes girls uncomfortable and unwelcome in the sailing space. So I think there's a lot of lies on men just to be less sexist, and just show, and then with that, you're all women's groups, so they can women can almost do what they do well away from a toxic environment, and hopefully the two kind of streams will merge together.
Yeah, thank you, Heidi. I think calling it out is all of our responsibility, and if we want to grow the sport, we need to be changing the environments we're living in. And I mean, I've been guilty of making jokes that are inappropriate, and thinking they are appropriate, but you don't realize a young girl who's just getting into the sport and walks into a bar or a room full of men and cops a comment that isn't totally appropriate. That's not on, like the underwear issue. That guy just thought, oh, he's making a good joke, and I'm sure a bunch of the guys in the bar laughed, but they didn't think of the other side of this. What are they doing to the sport and to attracting women into the sport with that comment? So yeah, very good point. Thank you very much, and thanks for your change you've made in the Royal Cape sort of setup with that. I think that's impressive.
I think also just a question on my side. You mentioned a lot about female instructors. So with regards to that, how do you how do you attract people to become an instructor, and also how do you probably approach women who are already sailing to become instructors? Is there anything that can be kind of marketed or advertised that actually brings a benefit to it, besides obviously the overall goal of attracting more females to the sport? So in a sense of, is there something that we can make the instructors or whoever takes up the role of an instructor to be beneficial to them as well as an individual?
Yeah, I think the first thing is goes back to my last presentation, and that's about pathways. We need to show the girls that there's a clear pathway for them to become instructors. We need to maybe look at the girls and women that are sailing, and if we identify a talented person who we believe really has a rapport with the young girls, bring them in and explain the responsibility to them that, you can change the world, girl. Just be there to show other girls that they can do it, and then maybe get involved in instructing and teaching so that we can get more girls into the sport. So I think showing the pathway for girls into instructing and coaching is important. Coaching for coaching is very different in South Africa, because coaches do a week here and a week there and a little bit here and there. But if we look at the international coaches travel a hell of a lot. So this doesn't suit a woman who's going into the young family market or who's having a family. So we need to be aware of that, and those girls rather encouraging them into developing the learn to sail industry in their clubs, and then local coaching and local marketing. But we have to be aware that if the pathway leads to international high-level coaching, this doesn't suit in the current day girls that are between 30 and 40 years old, because generally it's where they're starting to have families and they can't travel a lot. But then again, bringing in a young mother who's been sailing, who's now had a baby, and the child's just getting to the 5-6-year-old stage, maybe that's a good opportunity to encourage that mother to come in and start learning to be an instructor, so that when their child goes into the sport, they can show their child the right way. So yeah, I would say the pathway is the biggest thing that we need to look at there.
Okay, thanks, Rob. Is there anyone else with the question before we close the session? Okay, guys, thank you for joining us today. You can reach out to us, as you can see the contact details. This was part 4 of the series. I believe we had one more, if I'm not mistaken, parasailing. And then if there were any questions that you think of after the session, please do forward them to us, and we'll be able to answer them the best we can. But with that, thank you for joining us, and we will see you next time.